Naalala mo ba yung assignment sa philosophy?
Ano assignment?
Yung quote.
Oo, yung, I think, therefore I am ata yun. Tapos pinapagawa ng essay. Get mo ba yun?
Hindi ko
nga get.
maintindihan. Wala na nga ako maisip eh. Gutom na ako.
Oh man, gusto kumain na lang tayo. Kain na nga lang tayo.
Do you think you've ever philosophized in your life? Your answer would be probably yes. Philosophy does not require you to be a genius in order for you to partake in it. In fact, even as students, we are already using philosophy on our life situations. You may not notice it, but it is already in the form of questions one may ask, such as, why am I living? Is God real? How does the world work? Is this good or bad? Questions which you do not have or cannot arrive at a definite answer to are already part of philosophy. One may be closed off or indifferent to the concept of asking questions which no one can have an answer to. Some people may find philosophy uninteresting or insignificant due to its ambiguous nature. One may think, what is the point of having questions without answers? Or why wonder about something that is not concrete? So they'd rather pursue something that can be studied and solved, such as sciences. In chapter 15 of Bertrand Russell's Problem of Philosophy, he draws a parallel between philosophy and science. Physical science immediately helps many people, even those who may not comprehend it, through innovations and practical applications. This is why studying physical science is beneficial not just to those disciplined students, but also to society as a whole. Bertrand Russell contends, on the other hand, that philosophy does not have the same immediate value as physical science. The usefulness of philosophy is not mainly found in practical inventions or concrete advantages. Instead, its worth is indirect, and it has an impact on the lives of individuals who study it. Thus, those who wish to attain practical knowledge, they remain constricted by their own ties to the real world, rather than the wonders of wisdom with what is unknown out there.
Now that we have an idea of what philosophy is from past discussions, let us tackle the lesson for this video, the value of philosophy. But before we discuss the main point, let us first understand the meaning of practical men that Bertrand Russell has mentioned and how it affects one's willingness to study philosophy. As logical students, you may have already had to make decisions on how to prioritize your needs. Whether to buy clothes first or food, you've experienced having to make practical decisions. This is similar to Bertrand Russell's idea of practical men. One recognizes the need to feed themselves, their body, but misses on the necessity of feeding the mind. People more often see the practicality of giving their bodies food, but not the mind. Yet, Russell Bertrand sees both the body and mind equally important to nurture. So even if most of the major world problems were almost to be gone, there would still be a long way in order to have a valuable society, as we, the men, should give attention to the mind as you would the body. He believes that once we free ourselves from the prejudices of being what is wrongly called practical men and feed our minds as well with knowledge, then one can possess the goods of the mind where the value of philosophy lies. Then those who are interested in these goods can be coaxed that studying philosophy is worth all of it. Now let's say that you have recognized the need to feed your mind as well. Well, you have been persuaded to study philosophy, but what do you benefit from it? What is the value of it other than nurturing your mind? Like every academic discipline, philosophy has the main objective of acquiring information and insight. Russell underlines that philosophy seeks a certain form of knowledge nonetheless. It includes bringing all disciplines together and making them logical, and it emerges from a rigorous examination of the ideas that underlie our convictions, prejudices, and views. But why are there no conclusive solutions in philosophy? a frequently asked query among those who study philosophy. When it comes to giving precise and definitive solutions to its concerns, philosophy has not been as effective as other sciences. Philosophers frequently deal with issues that lack simple answers, whereas scientists in other professions may offer specific and well-established truths. Philosophy's unpredictability stems in part from the fact that historically, when definitive knowledge is attained in a given field, philosophy ceases to exist and is replaced by a distinct science. For instance, psychology began as a subfield of philosophy before becoming a separate scientific discipline. It's just that philosophy serves as a repository for inquiries and debates that are still in the realm of uncertainty and exploration. Whether or not we arrive to a certain truth, philosophy's main intention is to make us aware of these questions or inquiries, how important they are, how to look into the approaches to them, and to keep one's speculative interest in the universe alive that is likely to be killed if we limit ourselves to conclusive and determined knowledge.
Are there instances of miracles? Is there such a thing as soul? Can religious experiences be taken as evidence for the existence of God? Philosophers have believed that philosophy could provide concrete and demonstrable answers to fundamental questions, particularly in the realm of religious beliefs. They have attempted to construct philosophical proofs for religious beliefs. Nevertheless, some feel that such proofs are unlikely to be discovered or have not been discovered, and hence, the work of philosophy should not be based on delivering definitive solutions to these questions. The value of philosophy is in fact to be sought largely in its very uncertainty. Bertrand Russel states in his essay, "Let's break this statement a little down to further understand what it means." Have you ever been a man that is confined to his own beliefs, ideas, thoughts, and opinions? Perhaps it may not have been you, but someone you knew or you've seen. For instances, some people in some countries or part of it are locked into the belief of child marriage. Not many dare to question nor change their customs, blindly following instead of doubting its morals. This happens due to their customs, for it's what they have known while growing up. Like most of those people, a man who has no trace of philosophy is closed off or imprisoned in these prejudices based on common sense for life, from habitual beliefs that may have been fed to him by surroundings or convictions that have been planted in his mind. A man becomes accustomed to this what can be perceived as common sense. Then the uncertainty of the world disappears for this man, as it becomes a definite, limited, and obvious world for him. Those who have been accustomed to stay unquestioned and unfamiliar possibilities he could explore are rejected. Philosophy allows us to open our minds to these explorable possibilities. We find that everything around us has its own problems, which once again has no certain answers to. But that is the point of philosophy, to be uncertain. It shows us many possible answers, which expands our knowledge and thoughts. It frees us from the imprisonment of what we have accustomed to. Besides enlarging our knowledge, it feeds our sense of wonder by showing something new to our minds, something unfamiliar to learn. Going back to our example of people who still follow child marriage, those who have been against it means they have already philosophized. They had doubts against the tradition and customs, questioning whether it's right or wrong, exploring different possibilities to it, much as to many situations in our life. This is applicable to them. This is one of the values of philosophy, to gain awareness and rid ourselves of certainty.
As humans, don't we all instinctively desire for freedom? Yet naturally, the man is only encircled and glued within his personal interests, such as family and friends. This type of life is something hindering, feverish to man. Sure, it interests a man nonetheless, but it is a small and limited world to explore. A small private life that exists within a bigger outer world is bound to eventually be destroyed. In contrast to this, philosophical life offers so much more than what a confined inner world of interests can give. In comparison to being locked in and agitated about your own personal world, philosophical life allows you to be calm and free. The world of private interests holds no peace, as it only builds up the demand for desire and absence of will. If we wish to possess freedom, then we must escape this imprisoned world of chaos, desire, and unwillingness. Bertrand Russel says that philosophic contemplation is one way to escape that prison. Philosophical contemplation does not mean objectively dividing the universe into two opposing groups such as friends and enemies, good and bad. Rather, it views the world equally. It also does not aim to prove that the universe is like or similar to a man. All obtained knowledge makes self or oneself grow, but it happens best when it is not achieved for that sole purpose. It should be due to the continuous desire for knowledge without expecting that the objects you are studying should be like this or that, which you may have wished for it to have. When we try to prove that the world is similar to the self, without any acceptance of what seems to be alien or unknown, then the enlargement of self cannot be achieved. These types of situations become a form of self-assertion, which hinders the growth of self. Self-assertion in these philosophical theories sees the world as a tool for the self, so it makes the world less significant than the self, and the self limits its own to the goods. On the other hand, if we were to begin from the not-self, then we can expand the limits of the boundaries of self through the infinity of the universe. To explain this in an easier way, philosophical contemplation refers to seeking knowledge for knowledge itself. Self refers to one's self, the individual's identity or character. Knowledge makes this self grow, change. Best when the acquisition of it is sought without intending to do it for the enlargement of self. Thus, if we say that the world is similar to self, that is understandable, limited. Then the enlargement of self cannot be once again achieved. These situations where we see the world as a way for the self's enlargement are self-assertion, which also hinders the self to grow. Because of this, philosophies that reduce the universe to man do not foster greatness of the soul. Knowledge is a way of uniting self and not self, and like other unions, it is weakened by control, which is why it is weakened by any attempt to make the universe fit into what we find within ourselves. For instance, two countries are talking of union or uniting their countries. Suddenly, the other party wishes to take advantage of the other, thinking that they can shape the other country into what they want it to be. Then their connection, union, becomes impaired. It is the same as the union of self and the not-self. If we assert the idea or knowledge that the universe is like a man, then the connection between the two lessens.
Who ultimately holds the authority to reveal the truth? Humans or philosophy? Does knowledge originate within ourselves or from the external world? There is a perspective that tells us that humans are the only ones who can accurately judge what is the truth, that space and time are all from the mind, and that anything that is not a product of our minds are incomprehensible and insignificant to us. However, this perspective is false. If the prior discussions were accurate and we base them on those, other than that, it argues that this view restricts genuine philosophical contemplation by placing an excessive amount of emphasis on the self and building obstacles to a more than thorough comprehension of the universe outside one's perceptions and prejudices. In essence, this contends that true knowledge does not come from forcing one's own belief and wishes upon reality, but rather from a union of the self and the outside world. As we use philosophic contemplation, the mind adapts and gains the freedom of impartiality it has, which then will be shared to the world of actions and emotions as well. As the mind sees that everything is equal, then there will be no bias. Action, justice, and emotion is the universal love that can be given to all, without being judged whether it is useful, good, or admirable.
Philosophical contemplation does not only expand ourselves nor object our thoughts, but also the objects of our actions and emotions. It opens us to everything and everyone. It makes us citizens of the universe who are not confined to any walls of civilization while being at war with the rest.
Philosophy is not studied in order to achieve definite or conclusive answers in life. Instead, its value lies on uncertainty itself, as it expands our minds and understanding of the world. It nudges us out of our confined inner world for us to further see what is possible, that there are no limits to our intellect, imaginations, or knowledge. It opens our enclosed minds to curiosity, inquiries, but most of all, its highest value is to connect our minds and the universe into one, which represents the highest form of good. So as students, it is important for us to be curious about everything. Let us open our minds and allow ourselves to indulge in the desire of understanding the world. But keep in mind that philosophizing does not equate in having concrete answers to your questions or finding solutions nor facts. Rather, it is focused on our thirst for the possibilities that lie in the universe.